Hello and welcome to Folio Web Help. This is the second in a two-part series on using the Audacity sound recording software. From the beginning, I have to sort of apologize that we're going to be recording the Audacity tracks through the microphone on my headset out of the speakers of the computer. So the sound quality of the actual Audacity program won't be optimal, so please bear with us. In the first program, we covered how to download Audacity and the LAME library. We covered how to install Audacity and the LAME library and link the two together through preferences. We also looked at how to set input and output devices in preferences, and then a brief tour of the Audacity interface. In this program, we're going to cover how to import music into Audacity, how to use the envelope tool to control basic fades in your music, how to record live music, typically your voice, how to edit a recording, and how to export your audio as an MP3 file. We'll get started by launching the Audacity program. So here we are at the Audacity window, and we're going to begin our work today by importing some background music. So I'll go to the Project window and select Import Audio. And out on my desktop I have Bruce Hornsby in the Ranges the way it is, and I'm going to choose Open. And in just a moment you'll see that we have two tracks, a left and a right, stereo track for this MP3 that's about 4 minutes long. And we're zoomed way back so our tracks look kind of just like a scratch together. But let's experiment with the zoom tool for just a moment. And we'll zoom in. And the more we zoom, the more you can sort of see that each one of these waveforms constitutes kind of one sound. So we can zoom very close in and then use the select tool. I'm at about 28 seconds here. And let me just scroll for about, let's see, that's about only 1 second of audio. And let's play that. And again, I apologize for the quality of the sound recording. So just a teeny little snippet, and so you can see that maybe we can begin to edit these little waveforms and delete things and duplicate them and apply effects and all kinds of stuff. Okay, let's zoom out, and to zoom out we're going to use the zoom key again, but we're going to hold the shift key down, and that's going to zoom us back out to about where we were. Now this audio program is kind of loud as background music, and we certainly don't want it to be that loud over a 4-minute span. So we're going to use the envelope tool. And the envelope tool is the second one in. And notice this, when I click on the envelope tool right at the top here, it's going to generate a little blue bar. See the little blue bar here? And I'll click off on the select tool, and the bar will go away. So the little blue bar tells me I'm in the envelope tool. Okay, now what I can do is as I kind of move over, I'm at the 10-second mark, that's 20 seconds, that's 30 seconds. At about 10 seconds, I'm going to make one of these little inflection points. And I'm going to go back out to 20 seconds, maybe 15 seconds, split the difference, and make another one. And I'm going to pull the audio track down and just slide it away a little bit, pull it all the way down to basically nothing. So it'll start out at full volume, and then over about 10 seconds fade to nothing. And let's listen to that, and maybe I'll move this back so the fade starts a little earlier than that, and I'll bring the volume down a little bit too. So I'm beginning to sort of adjust the volumes of my background music. And let's play that and see what it sounds like through my speakers. And so there it starts to fade to almost nothing, just as the vocal comes in. Okay, let's click stop. Now let's add our own voice to this mix as an introduction to our podcast here. And we're going to use the record button. And as we click the record button, another audio track will be added down to the bottom here. So let's just click record, kind of have a script in front of me maybe, or just speak extemporaneously. But here we go. Let's record. Hello and welcome to Folio Web Help. My name is Dave Dalton. And in this version of the podcast, we're going to be talking about Audacity, the exciting open source sound editing program that's cross-platform, available for Mac, Windows, and Linux. And best of all, it's free to anyone who wants to use it. It's a very powerful tool, but sometimes people think it's a little bit unfriendly. So let's dive right in. Okay, that's enough. Now you can see that down at the bottom I have my own waveform, and it's interesting, it's much choppier in appearance than the music because the music is more continuous tone. As my voice goes higher and lower, you can see the sort of inflection points. Now let's zoom in on my voice track, And you can see the little pauses or breaths that I've taken, and that kind of gives you a handle on being able to edit out stuff. But let's zoom back out. Again, hold the Shift key down to zoom out. And let's play our track, again through my laptop speakers. Oops, you can see that we have a problem right away, right? That is that the music is so loud it drowns out my audio track. In other words, it's not background music at all. So what we're going to do is use the Time Shift tool, and that allows me to just drag the track any place we want to. And I'm going to just position it right where the music kind of fades completely out. So my voice will come up as that kind of comes down completely. So I'm going to play it again. It fades out. Hello and welcome to Folio. And there I go. My name is Dave Dahl. And in this version of the podcast, we're going to be talking about Audacity. Okay. So we've seen how to import music and to use the envelope tool to tone it down. And now we've seen how to record voices live. The only thing left is to edit this and export it. So let's zoom in again, and just to illustrate, in this short little clip, I don't think I made too many gaffes, but we'll see how to delete one anyway. Now again, we're zoomed in so that about every inch in my line here is 1 second. So this snippet right here is only about 1 second worth of audio. Let's highlight that with the Select tool, just this 1 second or so, and see what it sounds like. Of course, it's going to be very brief. It's a very powerful tool. Well, it says it's a very powerful tool. That's quite a few words in 1 second, but I'm going to just select from the flat line, that's kind of where I paused, to this flat line where I paused, and I'm just going to get rid of that. I'm going to cut it out and say, like, I don't need that at all. So I'm going to go right to the Edit menu and just choose something as simple as Cut. Now there are different options that you might have noticed up there. Cut, delete, silence, trim. Play around with those. Trim copies it into a new track so you can do things with it, and delete flattens it out. And there's all kinds of different options here, but cut is probably the easiest conceptually to work with. Now I'm going to zoom out again, zoom tool, Shift, and I'm just going to select a little bit around that clip. I don't want to have to listen to the whole thing over and over again, just what I'm editing. And let's play it now. So I deleted that little chunk about how exciting and powerful it is. Now I also want to delete the next part just for review about how intimidating it is, because so far it's not intimidating me. Let's play that again and see if we can spot that little chunk as well. I think it's probably, again using the selection tool, about here. And let's see how much that sounds like. But sometimes people think it's a little bit unfriendly. Oh, it says, but sometimes people feel that's a little bit unfriendly. Let's cut that out. I'm running out of things to say here, but let's listen to that much now. Best of all, it's free to anyone who wants to use it. So let's dive right in. There we go. So we eliminated a couple of chunks of audio, and that's kind of the process that you go through, is find pauses or little mistakes that you made, and you can delete those out. So the best advice when you're making your live recording is when you know you've flubbed, just pause and collect your thoughts, and then you'll have a nice flat line in the audio that you can go in and grab before and after the flub, and then just delete it really quickly, and keep your audio rolling, and you'll be able to edit it up very, very quickly. Okay, now I'm going to zoom out one more time, hold the Shift key down, get my whole program, my shortened audio clip there, and my music, and I want to save this first as a project. Save project as. Now what this does is it's actually going to tell me here, it's going to save the Audacity project file at .aup, and it's going to save everything in Audacity's native file format. It's also going to create a folder for me that keeps all of these clips separately. So I'm going to name the AUP file something like podcast, and let's call this Podcast Tech 1 to give it a fancier name, and I'm going to save it right on my desktop. Okay, let me minimize Audacity to show you what it's done for us. Out on my desktop now, I have my original MP3, and I have this AUP file, podcasttech1.aup. That's the project file that keeps track of all the work that I've done. But the actual snippets are inside this Podcast Tech 1 data folder. So in effect, I need both of these, the project file and the folder that contains all the clips. And I still haven't quite exported stuff yet. So let's go back to Audacity. And now that I've saved my project, in case I ever want to go back in and continue to edit this, I can do that easily. I'm going to go ahead now and export it, and you can see right there is export as MP3, and it gives me another very important warning. What it says is your tracks will be mixed down to 2 stereo channels in the exported file. An MP3 file can only contain 2 tracks, and you see here I have 3. So what it's going to do is it's going to condense those down into 2 tracks, and that problem gets confounded if I'm working with an Audacity file with many, many tracks, and that happens a lot when I use trim and some other features in Audacity. So you just have to be mindful that an MP3 file crunches your tracks together, and that makes extracting the audio like we did with our selection tool and cutting stuff out, it makes it extremely difficult because you just won't have those little pauses and flat lines there anymore. So be sure that before you export as an MP3, you've saved your project as an Audacity file someplace convenient so that when you need to go back and make some changes, you have the Audacity file and the tracks, and then as well as the MP3 file that you've exported. So let's go ahead now and name this. It's going to offer me the same name as my Audacity file. So it's going to name it Podcast Tech 1 MP3 on my desktop. That's just great. I'll say yes, save. And it's going to render this file, and it just takes a few seconds. Now, the music track, although it's we only used about 30 seconds of it, 20 seconds of it, it's still 4 minutes long. So what I'd want to do is go through and make sure I deleted all the rest of that music, or I have a seemingly blank MP3 file for 3.5 minutes here. So I should delete the unused background music if my podcast is shorter than the background music. Typically it's going to be longer than the background music. Okay, so I'm done with Audacity, and I'm going to close it down. And there's my MP3 file. If I double click on this, it's going to play in Windows Movie Player or iTunes or whatever your MP3 program is. And then just a few seconds worth. And there comes my voice. And that's all there is to it. Once you have your MP3 file done, all you have to do is upload that to your portfolio or however else you're going to use the file. Okay, let's review what we've learned today. We've seen how to import an MP3 music file to use as background music in our podcast. We saw how to use the envelope tool to set fades for our music, and we then saw how to record our voices live. We used the time shift tool to move our tracks around in our timeline, and then we used the edit tool, the selection tool, to edit our tracks and remove unwanted little gaffes in our audio. And finally, we contrasted exporting as an MP3 versus saving as our project, and highlighted that we needed to do all of it. We need to save our file as an Audacity file, hold on to our folder with our clips in it, and then export our final project as an MP3 that we can use wherever we want. Now that we've seen part 2 of this video, you may want to go back and review Audacity Basics in part 1, and you may want to review the tutorial on uploading files to FolioWeb.